Hello there, everybody. Thank you for checking out episode 7 of the Mindful Steward podcast. Today, I am having a conversation with my really good friend, Christopher Michael Evans. So Chris is a videographer and director, and right now he's directing a lot of music videos, and he's doing a lot of interesting work on the cinematography side of things. But he's also just a really self-aware person who enjoys diving into some pretty deep topics, and him and I tend to do that often. So I figured he would be a really awesome guest to have on here, especially because him and I have talked a lot about some of the topics that people have actually requested that I talk about a little bit more on here. So him and I end up diving into the story of how he ended up where he is, his views on success and fame, and we spend a lot of time talking about the effect of modern technology on modern dating and relationships. So hopefully you enjoy this episode, and if you do, please subscribe and let me know what you think. Thanks so much. You know what? It's honestly a lot harder when I'm doing it with friends.
Yeah,
I've noticed that, and
because you're trying to get all into very deep conversation.
well, it's just I know what you're gonna say too.
I guess
Not entirely, but it's like these are conversations
you have a
we've had
layout
before.
though, so this is a good start.
Yeah, I know. I try and do this every time, but
True.
it usually rarely ever follows it.
Yeah,
All right, so this is round 2.
this is round 2, take 2.
Yeah, so I guess I'll just explain. Like last time we were gonna do this, and we went out for a huge lunch, and we had to go.
A Chipotle lunch.
Yeah, massive Chipotle lunch / dinner, and then we had to go to an event later that night. So we were super rushed. So we did this weird podcast, and I was trying to steer it in all kinds of different directions, and it just didn't work. So here we are, just trying this out again. But
Round 2.
so later that night, you basically went to the MMVAs, and I tagged along for a little bit.
You did. We raided the red carpet. We have to talk about that.
Yeah, well, that's the whole story. You snuck me on, and it was hilarious, and it was super funny. Yeah, you ended up winning an MMVA that night, kind of indirectly, because the song that you made the music videos for won Song of the Summer. So
Yeah, that happened apparently. And
Yeah.
it was very interesting.
I know. I mean, you're pretty modest, but that's a huge deal.
Well, thanks. I mean, I still need to hopefully get an actual physical MMVA in the mail, and then we can really celebrate. But no, it was cool to be part of that because they really crushed that song, Loud Luxury Body, in case you haven't heard it yet, and the music video that we shot literally 2 years ago in California, and then now it's really cool to see it blowing up. And there's another music video too, but we're celebrating both as a collective, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's pretty hilarious because I remember being here upstairs and you were showing me the video you just made.
Oh, yeah.
And you were like, this song could be really good, man. I don't know. Like, it sounds good.
I did say
and
that.
Now I walk down the street in Toronto and I hear that song playing at like every third restaurant or store.
Literally.
It's insane how popular it is.
And it's still growing like crazy around the world right now.
Oh, man.
And the video is still growing, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, it's cool to see those guys doing super well, like, to be honest.
London locals.
Yeah, and I mean, people have this tendency to put successful like musicians on an absolute pedestal. And it's
true.
different when you see people like at that level. Like they're people who, if you don't know them, everyone thinks that they're insanely crazy celebrities. Well, they are. But then I know them, and you obviously know them way better. I just know them through you. But
Right.
they're just normal guys who have done super well with music.
See, guys, we're all normal guys here.
We're all just normal people.
We're all
Some people are
normal.
doing way cooler things than others.
I mean, it's all perspective too.
Yeah.
That's pretty
Oh.
cool. To some people, it might be pretty lame, but
Yeah.
I think it's pretty cool.
I mean, it's awesome. I admire people who are doing well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I kind of want to take it in a little bit of a different direction than we tried last time.
Well, at least we
but-
have a structure this time, or at least a game plan, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No,
You're
we
going to
do,
guide
we do.
me.
I
but-
want to talk to you more about the cinematography industry and things about that.
Okay.
But so the reason that we kind of had the conversation last time is because I got my first topic request, and somebody said, "Hey, why don't have you ever thought about talking about modern day relationships and how technology is affecting them?
Oh, buddy.
And I was like, that's perfect because, like, I think it was like 6 or 7 months ago, I was writing a bunch of articles just about overstimulation and about technology. Like, I was just fascinated by it for a while and how it affects the brain. And you approached me and you're like, why don't we write something about this?
Yeah.
And you kept saying it and I was like, fine. And I just came over and we came up with a full story.
Yeah.
And it's like a short story concept that we have just kind of waiting. I think we obviously need to work on it a little more, but it's we'll make something out of it at one point or another.
I agree. I'm excited for that.
Yeah. I wonder when we'll get down to it, but,
after this podcast, let's get on this, Sean.
Maybe we should. But yeah, basically, the whole thought is how social media is affecting the way people interact with each other in relationships. And
oh boy,
what we did is we wrote a story kind of all around that. And I don't think I did most of this, but I started going around to tons of people that I know and even people I don't know that well and asking them for examples.
Right.
And just trying to get my head wrapped around what kind of stuff, because the whole point of it is to make, shine light on, to be relatable. And what became really obvious is that everyone freaks out about what they see on social media when it comes to a significant other or something, someone they're interested in.
Yeah.
And
it's a global phenomenon.
Everyone does it. It's like such a crazy thing. And yeah, I mean, I think it's just interesting to me because it's almost frightening how much we all take what we see in this virtual world and literally make decisions in the real physical world based on those things that we see.
That's so true.
Because they're not the same.
No. And that's kind of an interesting place to start this conversation too, because it's like a big topic of discussion that people talk about all the time, but they don't really get into those specific examples. And that's why I thought what we were trying to produce is kind of cool, because we were getting real life examples instead of just, social media, the kids are on their phone all the time. It's like, no, there's like a lot of deeper subconscious and emotional stuff going on here.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, human nature is it will always tell you that you want to know what you can't know.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we found, stalking people,
Insta
on social media,
totally not guilty.
Things like that, like totally talking yourself out of a good situation because of something you see.
Right.
Stalking. I mean, all of those things. Every single person I spoke to had examples. It wasn't something where there were a very few people who don't, and they're the same people who just don't use social media in an addicting way, which they're rare. Right. I'm addicted. I'm not afraid of admitting that.
We're all addicted. It's just if you admit it or not. And to what extreme.
Oh yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully we survive. But no, it's definitely a thing that is brought up all the time. And I think the more you probably notice this when you're investigating and asking people for examples, they probably kind of they had to think about it and be like, do I want to own up to the fact that I've been creeping on Instagram for the last year with my, significant other or something, or whatever the example is. But it's that's a reality. And I think it's just about talking about it and then realizing kind of why are we acting on that? Why are we doing that?
Yeah.
And then that's the interesting part. That to me is the social media is just a platform that makes everybody vulnerable and exposed. You can't live life not being exposed anymore. You might think you have secrets, but the internet has those secrets to some degree, at least to some degree. And at least they know your algorithm and the way you search things and text things, and they probably keep track of whose profiles you're looking at and what kind of people, and who knows?
Oh, they do.
Yeah. Well, sure. Exactly.
That's what the algorithm is choosing things based on.
Well, then one day that's going to shape into some sort of dating app where it already knows what you've been looking and searching, and then they're going to find that perfect person for you, in theory. And it's going to be a Black Mirror episode. So
yeah. Well, I mean, that sounds
very realistic.
That doesn't even sound like a bad thing.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. Then it brings up that is that it actually a bad thing to utilize this technology and really trust it? What we see is that the person is this authentic?
Oh, for sure.
So
I mean, a perfect example of something you and me have talked about a whole bunch, but of that kind of thing where you kind of are looking at why are you doing the things that you're doing, and maybe how technology is impacting those whys.
Right.
Is like dating apps.
Oh man.
Because I will say this from personal experience so that it doesn't seem like I'm just critiquing anyone, but I used to fully defend dating apps. I would basically had the perspective that, you know, we live in 2018. This is the best way
it's the way the kids
people.
are doing it.
And you know what? If you're doing it there's certain ways to do it. That's true, where it's just how it is.
Right.
And you can meet more people that you might click with. But I think I was more in denial because I was using like Bumble and stuff for so long that I wanted to think that. And now I'm at a point where, I don't know, I just feel pretty good with where I'm at. And I look at Bumble and you can meet really cool people on there. There are a lot of people who are just on there.
Right.
And there's a lot of people who, the second they feel a little bit of a void, they go on Bumble, chat with a bunch of people, start hanging out with them. That's a whole different thing. And that just creates a pattern of you like always having that void. And that's now the way that I look at those dating apps.
So
I'm seeing that more and more.
Yeah. It's a quick fix. Like, what not better way to fill your loneliness void with a bunch of random people that are, majority of them probably decently good looking, that are going to make you feel special. And then just ride with that. And then maybe, hang out with some of them. And then now get to know some of them. And then maybe even take it even like farther and start a relationship with some of these people. And it's like, it's a slippery slope. But maybe for the best, maybe for the worst. I don't know.
I think it's just
a big topic.
I know. You just need to be aware of why you're doing anything that you're doing.
Well,
and
that's it, right? That's the self-awareness. Boom.
Yeah. And I think like patterns too. Like I read this book called The Power of Habit or something like that. I'm actually only halfway through. It's an audiobook because I, for some reason, only listen to audiobooks now. I don't even read.
I need to do that. I haven't done that yet.
It's an amazing way to crush content. That's why I do it. But it's like patterns. Humans are so ingrained in their patterns. And you need to realize that every time you kind of do something that you know is a little bit bad, you're setting yourself way farther away from being the person you actually want to be, because you're just reinforcing a pattern even more. Once you reinforce a pattern more and more, it's harder and harder to hop out of it.
That's a good point. That's true, though.
Oh, for sure.
It's the human condition that we face. But
yeah, and that's like overstimulation, and
you
can relate that to almost anything.
It's true. It bleeds into like every topic that we could probably talk about today.
Oh, for sure. I would kind of want to hear your take on this. I don't think we've talked about that much, but like one thing that I noticed when I was talking to a lot of those people, and I didn't even really analyze it that much at the time, but I was sitting around this morning trying to create this framework of how this podcast would go, since last time it was just all over the place.
The director's notes, nice.
And I was thinking about kind of what those conversations were like when people were telling me stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't think this is a new thing. I don't think I'm free of it. I know I'm not.
Right.
But like, I think a really crazy thing is how much entitlement everyone kind of dates with.
Oh, man.
Like people just expect so much from people, and before they even think about what they're bringing and what they're being. Oh,
because it's like a menu. It's like you go on these apps and you literally get to, as messed up as it sounds, like you're ordering human beings. Like you're literally selecting from a surface, viewpoint off the bat and a quick couple one-liners, and then you're creeping their Instagram just to like really triple check to see what they're like. And then you follow them, and then you like their stuff, and then you blossom into a texting conversation now. And oh wow, we've really progressed in our 2018 relationship. And then it just kind of goes from there. But then the whole time I feel like people are just forgetting the fact that you're constantly aware of things. Like you're always like, you're hyper stimulating yourself about that person and nitpicking and because there's so many other swipes you can go through. Is this person the right one? And then the moment they mess up, or the moment they do something that's like kind of turns you off or is not what you thought, you easily can switch back and go, you know what, next.
Oh yeah.
And not give them a chance, or not like see it as like, oh wait, that's a human being that just messed up. And I mess up. Instead, it's like, no, that person's bad for me. They did that. She did that. He said that.
Oh, yeah.
And I noticed that's something, going back to what you're saying about entitlement, that happens, I think, all the time in this like dating app world, where you just have any flaw or anything that comes out, you can use that against that person. And it just kind of sucks because it takes away from that genuine, I guess, experience of like growing in a relationship. Like you have all these obstacles right off the bat in front of you. But then I guess if you get past those, it's actually pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm speaking from personal experience, as you might know.
Oh, of course.
Because I'm in a relationship right now, and I had a lot of that similar past where there was just so many different variables that could have really ruined it, or, you know, given me an excuse and her an excuse not to continue. But then we kind of grew up and looked past that and like looked at a human level and decided that it's something that is worth trying out and working and growing with. Oh. That even makes sense, but yeah.
No, it makes perfect sense. Yeah, absolutely. And I noticed, like, in a similar way to that, like, just people have, I just can't believe how many expectations people have for new people in their life or something like that. It'll be someone who they like, there's a girl who, like, one of my best friends in Toronto, and she was like texting this new guy who she met,
right? And
he wasn't doing certain things. And she was like, well, he's the guy. And then I have other buddies who are kind of complaining about girls in other ways. And it's like, it's nobody's job to do something. It's just like a mutual thing.
Right.
And you shouldn't be just feeling entitled to deserving something from someone.
Yeah.
Especially if that's not something you've ever communicated to the other individual.
That's it. So you're coming up to these like assumptions off the bat. You're already setting that person up for failure because of something you see in a picture or like a post or a quick, you know, Tinder conversation. Like there's so many variables that could work against you both actually doing something genuine, but instead you're just fixating on the negatives and the like little nitpicking, you know, areas of imperfections, which is ironically what we all have. And because of technology and because of all this exposure that we have now, you can't escape that. Like I can only show so much online, but that before you actually know who I am and or like what I do and how I act. And I think it's just like this overstimulation mixed with like, entitlement, and it's a bad combo.
I know it's just a really crazy kind of scenario we live in right now. One thing that I've always wanted to write an article about. One time we were driving home from Toronto and you brought it up and you explained it so well. And I've been
I should have recorded
always contemplating. Yeah, I've always contemplated writing an article about it because your reasoning was so sound. But like you're a guy who's had relationships. You're 27 also, right? Or are you turning 27?
Turning 27.
Yeah, I forgot you have a late birthday.
I'm a youngling now.
Yeah.
Still. No, not at all.
But no, you're 27, man. Well, 26.
My back hurts talking about it.
But so it's not like you're one of those Bible thumping people, but you did grow up.
I like this transition.
Yeah, you did. You did like grow up going to church. So it's just something that you're a little more open to considering. But you've talked about a very modern approach to basically holding off until marriage, or at least somewhat of that kind of holding off.
Right.
And I really agree with you when you describe it. Not that it's something I want to do or that I have done, but it just seems so rational. I don't know if you can, because I feel like it was just in the moment when you were describing it. But
do you have some pointers that you remember me reciting about it? Because I can definitely get into a spiel about that topic. It's a very interesting topic.
I mean, I'll just tell you something that I've thought about with respect to that. Okay. Maybe you can just roll with it. But I, for example, this is just a different era, you know, like than when my dad and my mom got married. But when my dad and my mom got married, they met each other when they were like 19 or 18, something like that.
Oh, wow.
Started dating
young
when
bloods.
They were like 19 or 20. Yeah. Got married like 2 years later. And that was
really
normal back then,
that's
right?
true. I guess it is, yeah.
And so realistically, what are the odds they dated tons of people in their life? Pretty slim. So they kind of were together for basically for my entire adult life until I was 18. And then they split up, and my dad like dated a couple people, not seriously. And then he dated my stepmom, who he married. And she had the exact same story. She like married her high school sweetheart. They got divorced. She dated like a few guys, not that seriously, and then married my dad. Right. So are a better example. I'm just going to using them because they might be a little bit closer to somebody who has refrained up until marriage. Like,
yeah,
they probably don't have any secrets from each other.
Wow.
You know, and imagine
Sounds
the
refreshing.
intimacy that can actually bring into a relationship, as opposed to somebody who's, you know, like, let's say you're in
Sweeping
this day and age
rug.
in the hookup culture where everyone's got all these things. You could, like, if I married a girl, I would have who's my age and very similar to me in life experience.
Right. You'd have
It'd be, I don't have like, there's just things that we would both leave in the past. We wouldn't tell each other about all the people.
Do you know that though? Sorry, continue.
Talk about all those little details.
Like, yeah. No, 100%. I was interrupting you to be like, would she want to know though? Or like, we don't know. Like, you might have a conversation one day with your wife or your husband where it does mean something to them to have a very open and honest conversation about the past. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of fair, but it almost, there's this, going back to the entitlement conversation, interesting how we talked about that first, because now I'm realizing how well that connects into this, because if you're entitled and you feel like you earned this relationship and this person is perfect and you've been through hell to find her, and you don't want to talk about hell though, because hell is dirty details that you probably don't want her saying, but then seeing or hearing, but then what's like, maybe she doesn't want that. That's a different story, but maybe if she does want to know like your past, that's a hard conversation to have. Guy, girl, guy, whatever, like the husband telling the wife that and the wife telling the husband that, either way equally is a very like, no one wants, it's awkward probably. It's probably like kind of sad and messed up, I'm sure. Like, especially I'm thinking like in 2018, what are, you know, our generation of, you know, married couples going to talk about or not talk about? More importantly, what are they not going to say?
Yeah.
When we had Tinder back in the day, Grandpa, what was that like? Oh, let me tell you about that Tinder app. And don't even get me started when Bumble came around. It's like, what? Grandpa, don't tell me that. But like, see, the thing is, this is the first time in history where we have the internet. We have literal access to the world. When you grew up in a small town or even a big town, you were in a bubble. And that bubble, you might go out of that bubble. You might go to another country and meet someone there. But like realistically, these like, you know, dating for a year and then married a year later was very common. And kind of going back to what you were saying about my introduction to the Christian community, or the quote unquote potential Bible thumping community. And I'll get into that too, because it is a very sensitive area to talk about sometimes, because people misconceive and misperceive. What's the word I'm looking for? Oh, man.
They perceive things wrong.
People
That's pretty much.
Yeah. So people perceive a viewpoint from someone quote unquote religious, obviously, than someone who isn't. But anyways, what I was trying to say is like, I think it's kind of interesting to note how easy it was when you were in the 70s and 80s maybe, and like you didn't have constant access to your partner or the person you're interested in or the girl you like. You didn't have to go on their Instagram feed and see the other guys that were hitting her up. You didn't have to go, like, there's so many things that you didn't even think about because it didn't really matter. But the problem is, if it did actually matter and that your wife was doing that, like, you'd have to have that conversation with her. You wouldn't be able to call her out or vice versa. And I don't know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
Hold on. Another brain fart.
I'll just interject with something. Maybe it'll come back to you. Okay. If it doesn't, we'll roll on.
No. I'm there. I just need you to like keep guiding.
So there was a podcast I listened to recently with a sex therapist, and she primarily only helped women,
right?
And sometimes their partners. So sometimes relationship types of counseling, but. She talked about a lot of different stuff, like a lot about kind of the gender roles and that kind of stuff in the podcast. That's mostly what it was about. But one thing that she said that I thought fully aligned with what you told me, what we were talking about in the car that one day, was she mostly helps like young women. And there's this really weird conception among young people in general, not just young women, like definitely young men, like way more so, but that it's really empowering to just constantly be hooking up with people all the time and to go from one person to the next.
Right.
And she basically just counteracted that with a stat. She was like, the science and the research says that the more people you're hooking up with, the more people you have had sexual relationships with, the less likely you are to ever find a partner. And that sounds really daunting and scary, but she was pounding at that fact. She was like, it's the opposite of what you think. It's more about having meaningful relationships, the people you know really matter to you.
So true.
And being vulnerable with
them.
them.
It's interesting hearing that from like a scientific perspective, because I think the whole thing in life right now is, there's people who have a belief and there's people who are kind of finding the truth out through science and examples and stuff. And I'm very in both worlds with that. Like I do believe in a God, and I do believe that science has a purpose to kind of explain ourselves to each other. And I think in relationships, it's something that is vital to kind of understand that, at least from my perspective, when you're talking about this hookup culture, how does anyone genuinely think this is going to play out? If you're sitting at home and you have a girlfriend, but she's your 10th girlfriend of the year, and you've been on all the dating apps and you've been hooking up in between these girlfriends with other girlfriends, and then in your head you're like, you have these like this deep chat with your parents maybe, but like, settling down one day and finding the right one. Like, who is that one for you that is like going to be okay with all of that past that you're like collecting? And I'm not saying that's the case for everybody. Like, I'm not saying we're all doomed, because I think we're all in this together right now. We all have this past and we have baggage, but I think it kind of comes down to just taking us like a pause and realizing, okay, like I can stop this today. I can stop this right now. I don't need to. Why do I need to go hook up? Why do I need to do that? It's like, and I mean, me and you have talked about this quite a bit in terms of like the hookup culture and like why people are doing things the way they do. And it's really coming down to filling voids and trying to feel things and feel emotions. And all of that is something that trails back to your early years that you're used to. And if you have a lack of that, you're going to crave it in your relationships now. And there's something that I think is so obvious, but to everybody, it really doesn't seem to be. And it's, like waiting for marriage, just because like the Bible says save sex for marriage. That is funny hearing from you now that there's like some sex therapists that's saying that same thing. And it's kind of like, okay, you can hear it from a Bible or you can hear it from a sex therapist, but guess what? They're both saying the same thing for a reason. And that reason is that this isn't going to help you in the future. And that's all it really is. It's like a concern. It's like, do we need to like do this? I don't know. Yeah. It's you know in your head when you're doing this or you're living a lifestyle like that, the back of your head, you have to know that this is probably not gonna like be the best conversation to tell my grandkids about. Like, do I want to be the grandpa at the family gathering who's like talking to his grandson about like the 50 women he slept with back in the day? I mean, I've definitely talked to grandpas like that, and it's kind of weird. And I'm like, I don't know how it's gonna be in the next 20, 30 years, but I don't know. I just feel like there's some sort of, it's a respect thing too. And I think the moment you actually like, settle down, let's say, and you find that right person, you do have to have these conversations. The past will creep up to some degree. And then you need to be ready for that. And that person you're with needs to know that. Like, I don't think I'd want to marry someone who tells me 20 years into our marriage that, oh, by the way, I know I said I only slept with 2 people, but it's actually 2,000. And I'm what? It's like, I mean, dang, like I still love you the same, but like what happened? And it's going to be a hard conversation to have. And I mean, I'm hoping by 20 years in you see past that, but at the same time, like what, like that could happen to people. That's a very extreme example.
Yeah. Oh, and I think it kind of relates to just the addiction to quick fixes. If you're feeling sad,
stimulation, man,
you feel lonely, the quick fix. which is the same as what drugs do and what bad habits are. And it's the
So
same as
true.
all of that.
All easy addictions that you can easily fix when you just all have to do is pick up your phone.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
We don't have self-control. I think that's the thing. Like we live in a society, in a world now where you can move on to the next thing because there's so much of the next thing. When you grew up in a small town in the 30s, you kind of like your mentality was shaped around what you had. Your brain, and that to some degree, that's why we have such amazing creative people in this era, because people are realizing I can start my own business, I can be my own boss. I don't have to like be confined to the norm and the classic way of living and working. I can actually, it's self-realization. It's just like, this is the first time in history that we're all self-aware more than we've ever been. And it's like affecting every angle of our lives, like relationships, work, career. And I think that's why all this stuff is happening. There's all this like crazy chaos with relationships and jobs and like people trying to find themselves. And it's really exciting, but it's also like you can see how easy it is to slip and to lose self-control.
Oh yeah.
Like if I literally the craziest thing to me is how we don't even need to go to McDonald's anymore. We can just order it to our door. Like as weird as that sounds, because it's like, what's the point of going to a store or a restaurant anymore? Because in the next 5-10 years, I guarantee you're going to have Google Home ordering you food and groceries and anything you need, and you never have to leave your house. So things are getting weird. But like if you had that kind of pressure with a relationship, knowing that like at any given time I can be recycled because of a human flaw, because I'm still a human, but that's not good enough because I have access to 7 billion people. It's hard. It's a hard balance. And I think like it's going to be harder than ever for people to really like realize who they are, firstly, and then secondly, accept the person they're with. And I do not think hooking up with multiple people is in any way going to help anyone. And I don't think we needed Tinder to say that. I think it's sadly just a fact that has been conveniently actually written in this book called the Bible that people keep shitting on all the time. But it's like, oh, it's almost
Shout out to the Bible.
Shout out to the Bible. And I think it's funny because it's almost like I look at it like this way. I think of it as, for example, don't have sex before marriage, okay? Let's use the metaphor of like a highway. If you're going down a highway and don't have sex before marriage was a sign that said 100 kilometers an hour limit, what does everyone do? They go 120. But some people go 200, and then there's some people go 300. But there's a reason there's a speed limit. It's just like, hey, just keep it, like, don't go above that because you're going to get hurt or you might crash or you might die. Literally, that's an extreme version. But like in reality, all of those, facts that the sex therapist is now preaching, or the Bible, or whoever, or whatever you believe, it's really comes down to the same conclusion. And it's like, well, there's a reason that's not going to help you.
Oh, absolutely.
So just maybe don't try it. I mean, we all mess up. We're all going to do it still. None of us on this podcast are going to really listen to these rules. But I'm just saying, be aware of it. I think the more you're self-aware of the outcome.
Oh, man. And I think realistically, this is just planting a thought.
Yeah. That's what it starts with.
Like, this is just planting the thought that just maybe you need to we all need to consider our actions.
Like maybe I shouldn't have as much sugar as I'm having. Maybe I should stop drinking so much alcohol because maybe I am addicted. Oh, maybe I should stop watching porn because I'm actually like, that's an addiction to me.
This is what I find interesting. Like, first of all, this is great conversation because the ultimate feedback, I shouldn't say the ultimate, like
one of
the most common feedback from my podcast so far and my website in the last year is when I put out articles that are just talking about really vulnerable stuff or things that people especially think that I don't ever think about. And you and me have these conversations all the time. Yeah, people guys think about these things often.
We're
and guys
vulnerable and sensitive too, ladies and men. Get it together.
And
it's true though. I think we do. Like I said, we're all exposed. We have the internet against us in a way, but we also have it for us. But we need to now realize this is a good time in our lives and in history where we can kind of come out of our shell way more than before. And you see it everywhere. That's why there's so much drama in the news every day because there's new kinds of humans that are popping up around the world that their neighbor next door doesn't know how to comprehend. It's like, wait, you like the same sex? You like how? And people like, it's like hopefully we've got past that, but you know what I mean? That's like what we've been struggling with as a human race is understanding things we don't understand. But that's not the point, I don't think. So that's another
rabbit hole we could go down. It would take
I can see it from here. It's a deep rabbit hole, but we'll continue our journey here.
No, that was a good rant. Good rant. I'm going to do a full 180 here.
Yes.
Switch it up for the video stuff. I'm just going to basically ask you one question. Let's see how to start this. So yeah, like I guess for TIFF, you were at my place, staying on my couch, like working every day.
Hey, shout out to Sean's couch.
Yeah.
And Rumi's.
It's a great couch.
It is a great cozy couch. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, man.
That was a good week.
Yeah, it was fun. And you were kind of working with some guys who who are actors, and they're starting to do really well. Yeah. And obviously you're shooting music videos for household names pretty much these days. And for TIFF, you were like, yeah, you want to come to my party? Like, my buddies are hosting this event. So I was like, yeah, why not? And I showed up, and it's like, we're surrounded by like famous directors, famous producers, like A-list celebrities. We're all over.
Toronto Film Festival.
And yeah, I mean, realistically, people who are directors and cinematographers, most of them would dream of the opportunity to get to that level of being able to work with those people and have those opportunities.
Yeah.
And you're a really modest person, but you're at that point right now. So what do you think you've done to be there? Yeah, like you are at that point. It's a really...
to simplify, I think what you're saying, I've always looked at what I've done as a massive blessing. It's like the fact I get to literally like live and afford what I love to do, which has been making goofy videos since I was in grade like 5. Like literally, like I've been, and keep in mind, I'm 26, turning 27. We had YouTube, like YouTube started in like 2004. Like I was still a kid and the internet just was happening. And then when I was old enough in like later elementary school and stuff, it kind of exploded, and then YouTube came out, and then like being able to record videos and share it was a thing. And then I kind of just really got addicted to doing that. And then in high school, I made all the sport recap videos with my buddy Matt Stevenson. Shout out to Matty Boy. He's gonna kill me because he thinks I take all the credit for our awesome men's rugby video, but it was an equal effort. Okay, it was a full production, but it was cool to see at the end of the semester that the whole school, like 2,500 kids, are in an assembly, and then they start playing my stupid little video, our video, Matt, sorry. And it's like everyone's cheering and like, this is sick. I had a Linkin Park song going off, and like, it was a great time. Anyways, long story short, I've been passionate about it since day one, and I am now at a point where I'm getting money and I'm getting an opportunity and I'm getting to meet really inspiring, amazing other creatives who are doing the same thing. And that has been the most humbling experience for me from day one, to the point where like I literally have no complaints. Like I mean, I do complain, but like I have to almost check myself a lot and be like, you don't, like, you shouldn't have to complain about anything. And these people that I'm surrounded by in this industry and I get to work with, they've seen something in me that I think is genuine and real. Like I don't want to do this for the views and the money and the fame and whatever you want to call it in the film industry, because it's like that's a very given fact. I think I've just come to terms with the fact that everything I do is really cool. Like I'm not going to sit here and be like, that video is like, it was whatever.
Well, you can't chase the following before you're focusing on the content.
But what does everyone do? They chase the following. Like I don't want to go back to our social media rant because that's another rabbit hole. But like
that is,
it literally is the curse of this being a creative is you always will be down on yourself because you don't have enough followers, you don't have enough likes, you don't have enough feedback or whatever, and there's just so like analytics, and like you can go into your own rabbit hole with that. And I think at the end of the day, my biggest thing I took a step back, I looked at the potential of what this could be, and the potential is that I have a voice that could reach millions of people. Like, I'm not saying I did or I do. I'm just saying literally, what is the end result of this career or this lifestyle I'm choosing? And it is a massive reach. It's a massive thing that could inspire huge amounts of people. Like, making a movie is a big deal. And I started looking at it as like almost a responsibility rather than just like this really sick thing. And it's kind of like, that's what centered me and that's what's really driven me. And I think that shows in the relationships I've built with these, people I work with. And I think I've been now attracting myself and they've been attracted to me a little more because of this raw and genuine energy that we kind of pass along to each other. Because at the end of the day, we love what we do. Like, making a movie or filming an event or getting to go to these awards and like meet these insanely cool, inspiring people is super amazing. And it's super humbling though. And I think the hardest thing is forgetting that it's, it's a responsibility now for me. And I mean, this sounds so cheesy sometimes to some of you probably, but I genuinely think like, if I'm doing what I love and the thing that I love could potentially inspire someone across the world to maybe rethink their lifestyle or to maybe rethink that, something about whatever it is. Like, that's why making movies to me is so fun. Cause it's like, you're making a story, and stories are the most relatable thing on earth. Like, everyone loves a story. You cannot deny that. The whole human race is built off that. The reason we believe things is because of stories. The reason we are things are because of stories. When I was a kid, I wore Jurassic Park, pajamas to bed, and I then I got like a paleontologist kit at Christmas, and then I had a spy kit, and those were because of movies, and I was inspired by. Yeah. So it backtracks, and it's such and people forget like. That's the potential of my industry. Like, I could get to that point. I could maybe make a movie one day, and that movie might actually have more than 100 people watching. And maybe out of those 100 people, maybe one person is like, I'm going to do that when I'm older. And their whole life is now shaped because of that inspiration. Yeah. Like, I have to remind myself that is a possibility. And I'm not sitting here saying any of my videos are inspiring the future kids of our generation to pursue a career. But I've had so many people come up to me and be like, oh, like your stuff's inspiring. I love what you do. I want to like do stuff like what you're doing. And it's, to this day, it's hard for me to kind of even hear that. I'm like, really? Like, you do? It's okay. Thank you. But like, yeah. What do you do? I want to know what you do. Like, what's your interest?
Yeah. I mean, the way I look at, because I've known you for like a while now.
You know me for a while.
I've known you for like 10, 12 years.
Yeah.
And the way, if I had to describe how things worked out so well for you, obviously you're super passionate and you are talented at what you do, which that kind of comes with being passionate. But you spent a lot of time, in my mind, investing in good relationships. And there were moments where it wasn't about the money, it was about the relationships. And that's all just coming full circle, and it's so interesting seeing it all happen.
Actually, you hit the nail on the head right there, because that is the basis of, I think, any success, if you want to call it, with it, whether it be a relationship or a career choice. We're all humans, being humans, but we all have these like hats we wear, these like outfits we put on, and these degrees we have, and that's what now shapes us. So now I am of this club, I am of this tribe. But at the end of the day, we need to just kind of like meet someone because they're a nice person, or like or have a conversation with that guy because he actually is interesting. Instead of, oh, that's that producer, and like maybe he'll get me like $50 for that movie I won, and $50, but you know what I mean? Like, and then like now I'm going into a relationship with intention. That's not genuine from the core. And that's why I think I've been in a position where like I've been, like I said, blessed to be around celebrities and like people that I grew up watching and reading about, and now I'm filming them and getting their photo. And like, I need to almost see it as like, this is a human being that happens to be passionate about the same thing I am. So let's talk about that, rather than like, oh man, I just saw Tom Hardy, I should send him my reel. Just, you never know. And to be fair, that's how I think a lot of relationships are built, or careers are even made. But at the same time, imagine you are Tom Hardy. What happens to you 99% of the day? You have people coming at you left, right, and center to the point where you have to like run, and they're probably, half of them are trying to give you something to be like, check out this, like, I can do this.
Oh yeah.
Why not take a step back from all that noise, even if you had the opportunity to, and make yourself known in your own mind, and then genuinely work on yourself and your craft to the point where like Tom Hardy's going to come to you and be like, hey man, that was sick what you did. Cool. And then I'm still in that moment going to be like, thanks Tom Hardy, but you're not right for the role that I'm writing for this next script. And I've had that conversation even with like Shamir. He's one of my biggest inspirations and friends now, and that I get to call a friend. And him and his brother, the actors I've been following and documenting and getting to work with for the last 4 or 5 years. And they always are so humble, and they're in the industry. Like, they're co-starring with Nicole Kidman and Julia Roberts and these massive like Hollywood movies, and they're still so humble about the craft and the art and like the pursuit of that. And we've had conversations like, what if we could get this person in a project, or like, what if you could get that person? And then we have to take a step back and be like, well, we could, but is that person right for the role? That to me is that's going to be a good movie. But there's so many directors out there and producers who are like, we got Channing Tatum.
We need Leo.
We got Leo.
We need Leo.
Okay, but what's it for? It doesn't matter. We got him. Okay, well, but like, what's the story? Well, it's Leo. Doesn't matter. And you know what? Yeah, sadly, the market's still gonna like go and watch a Leonardo DiCaprio movie. But like, sometimes those movies aren't that good.
For sure, man.
Sorry, Leo.
I gotta interject here with something.
Get in there.
So this, basically, when you brought me to the MMVAs, we were standing on the red carpet, shaking hands with a lot of really successful people.
Yeah.
And I just found it really inspiring, because you're just out there with, a lot of people who are just like, there were like JWoww from Jersey Shore was there.
We were not supposed to be there, Sean.
Yeah, I know. Is this like gonna?
No, I'm kidding.
MMVA police are gonna come.
I think we just need to clarify. We got access to the MMVAs, but the red carpet, we just decided to kind of waltz on.
We just walked on, and
I happened to have my camera. And Sean, you were a great camera assistant that day, so I appreciate it. But yeah, sorry, continue.
But anyways, and
good times.
It's like a red carpet, and everyone there is screaming. Half the people are in tears, obsessed with these celebrities. And I found it almost, we left the red carpet and I was like, dude, that was fucking weird. And because it's just, I mean, I guess I always knew this, but I just don't pay attention to that kind of thing at all.
Right.
And when we're there, I came to this realization. It's like, wow, people are so obsessed with celebrities, and they hold them up like they're gods or something. And realistically, maybe we should all be more obsessed with our own lives than with them, and just draw inspiration from that.
There it is.
Like Conor McGregor, a lot of people hate the guy because he's like a big macho MMA guy, but his mindset stuff that he talks about is so interesting. And I've been really listening to a lot of his speeches in the last few weeks. He's an interesting dude. He really puts a lot of thought into having his mind in the right place. And he said something, it's not an original thought at all, but I just listened to his video like yesterday, and that's why I'm repeating it. But nice. He was like, there are people who see others who are doing well and and who are successful, and they either hold them on a pedestal like a god as if it's unachievable, or they envy that and go, wow, wouldn't it be nice to be them? And then there are other people who see that and they're like, wow, that is awesome what they're doing. Imagine I could get there.
Humility.
And he's like, there's just two different approaches. You should never look down on success, because that will hold you from ever achieving it. And even when I talk about success, some of my friends are like, oh, it's not all about just like getting rich. And like, it's like, that's not what I define as success.
Yeah, that's just
like
a factor.
They should know me better than to even assume that that's what I define as success. But that's
their viewpoint. That's their assumption and generalization. That's their, like, it's like a defense for them. They get insecure about it. Like, money. Oh, I don't want to talk about money. Yeah. Money, it doesn't matter. Oh, you got money.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, guess what? Successful people, when they're genuinely successful, they get paid.
Yeah.
They get a lot of money.
They're valuable. They have some value to bring, and it brings in
we love that.
money.
Humans love that.
Yeah.
But that's a good point, man. I think that's actually kind of like the most true little statement there. It's like, if you can get to a point, honestly, in your life where you can look at other people in your industry and be happy, like genuinely happy and inspired in a way through it, rather than envious and jealous, the more you push your mindset and mentality to that like you lift them up and you are inspired by them now, that changes everything. There are people to this day who literally live super envious, super jealous, and they are billionaires. I never would want to be that kind of person.
Oh, man.
Because to me, you either are pursuing money or you're pursuing a lifestyle or a dream. You're chasing security or you're chasing something you love. I'm trying to find the perfect word for that, but I don't know how else to put it.
The word is success.
It's success. Like
but
it's
a success. Like the thing about success that is so misperceived, misconceived. I guess that's the word you were looking for. But anyway, is that like having accomplished something means that you don't care about the right values, but there's a lot of internal value from succeeding.
Yeah.
You feel whole. You're like, I can do this. I am a badass. Like, I can do whatever the fuck I want.
It's like healthy confidence. Like, you can get that through success, but you have to have enough self-control and enough self-validation to realize that, like, it's okay to, I'm doing good. Okay. Pat yourself on the back. That person's doing good too. Okay, good for them. But instead of being like, I'm doing great, that guy's kind of catching up, I'm about to tear him down. It's like, build your own tower. Don't tear everyone else's down. You've heard that analogy before, but it's actually so true. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of refreshing to realize you can do that. Like, as much as people, especially in art, like my industry, with the creative industry, there's so many excuses not to create because everyone's doing it. Everyone has Instagram. Everyone's making stories and videos and photos. Like, why would I do it? I don't want to do it. Well, if you genuinely ask yourself that, and you need to like do some digging and be like, do I actually love this? Like, if I could make money doing this for a living, would I do it? What if I didn't get $1 from it? Would I still do it? That's the real question you have to ask.
Yeah.
Because everyone's going to always like make a decision because of money. And a lot of my successes, I've realized, came from taking massive risks that were kind of almost unorthodox or against what everyone was telling me. Like, you shouldn't be working with that client. They're really bad for you. They're taking advantage of you. They're not paying you well enough. Not enough pay is a classic example.
Yeah.
And depending on the situation, luckily at certain times, I got to a point where I was like, you know what? I know I'm not getting a lot of pay from this, and I'd have to take slack from all my friends and family being like, you deserve more, because your friends and your family are going to like lift you up and say, you deserve the best. You're the best video guy I know. You should be charging triple. And then I'm like, yeah, I know, but like I'm thinking 10 steps ahead here. I have a plan to be like, I want to prove myself at a genuine level. Here's what I can do. If you like it, hire me back. And then they do. And usually like all the time. And I'm not saying do spec work all the time. If you're starting, definitely do spec work and just create, because why not? You have to. Everyone else is. Someone else is going to do it if you don't.
Fair enough.
But anyways.
I mean, that's one thing I'll relate to this podcast, because this is a new project. I've been wanting to do this for a long time, but this is me having valuable conversations with people conversations I want to have, you know? It's for me to have good chats that bring me a lot of value. I'm someone who likes that. I don't really give a shit about like small talk. If anyone who knows me well knows that I don't really text, I will definitely call you and be like, let's meet up, let's hang out. But I'm not ever small talking really. And
you're onto something big here, Sean.
And people will be like,
you don't text me, man.
Immediately talking about what my end goal of making money with the podcast is. And the way I look at it is just, let me think here. Well, there's the whole concept, which is completely true, that the people you surround yourself with, the people you find inspiration with and interact with, are the people you are influenced by. And 100%. They have a huge impact on what you do. Yeah. So this is like a way for me to take charge of that. And I just get to voluntarily pick all the most awesome people to interact with and to be friends with. and to have awesome chats with. And I'm just taking control of that. I'm like, this is the people who are going to influence me, and no one else is.
You have it good, man. You got this podcast. You get to listen back and be like, oh, yeah. I got fueled by this inspiration the other day. It's like, dang.
Oh, man. And then that's the thing. Like, right now, I'm just enjoying the newness of it. But in a few years or, like, in a few months, I can start looking back at episodes that I like. Like, I listened to my episode with Rodrigo the other day just because
I love that guy. Jinx. Wow, we're so cute.
He's just such an authentic dude, man. And it's so refreshing even listening to that. Hopefully he hears this. Shout out, Rodrigo.
I love you, bro.
Love you, man.
We both love you. This is really awkward now. We really do, man.
It's getting weird. The candles, too.
There is a candle lit right here for you, and it was for you.
And, but on that note, I think this is like the perfect time for me to cut it.
Ooh, where are we at?
This is going to be like under an hour. So thanks for joining, Chris.
Thanks for having me, Sean.
This went way better than the first round.
Hey, second time's a charm, as they say.
Hey guys, thanks for listening. If you like the vibe of this podcast, you can subscribe on both SoundCloud and iTunes. And I just wanted to give everyone a heads up. Within the next few weeks, I am going to be releasing a resources page on my website that will include a bunch of free meditation tools. So stay tuned for that if you're interested in learning more.